Star Wars The Last Jedi, we're going to go over some key plot points. There are spoilers involved, but I just wanted to sort of dive into some of the areas that I saw a lot of comments and so forth on. So we're going to start right away with the whole Snoke situation. I thought it was absolutely hilarious and really well done how they handled Snoke. It was something that everyone had built up, someone who was just intense and crazy, and they show him having a lot of power. It just his downfall is really his arrogance. And I thought that was a really nice tone for a Star Wars film. So first off, when Rey heads out, she does something that's very much like Return of the Jedi. And I think that's a turning point for Luke as to see sort of himself in Rey and see that sense of, yes, the Jedi are supposed to serve a purpose. And yes, there's always good in people, and you should always be searching for that because he made that flawed mistake so many years ago that sort of really spiraled Kylo Ren out of control. I mean, he was already on that path, but just Luke sort of was the final push for that direction. And when you see her selflessly go off and do the exact same thing Luke did, Luke, takes that as a sense of, I have to move forward and get over certain things that happened and admit the failures. And Yoda really helped with that. God, the Yoda moment was just incredible. So when he's about to sort of finish off Rey, I want to start first and go back to them walking into the room. So the first thing they mention is they both see two different sides of what's going to happen. They're both very arrogant as being younger in the sense that they think they know the outcome of the event, but they only know part of it. See, Kylo sees Rey and him working together, which eventually happens. But Rey sees him turning on his master, thinking that he's going to turn to the light side. And that's the very interesting thing, is they both have two different perspectives, and by the end of the film, they're balanced out against one another. A Sith dies and a Jedi Master dies, and then there's balance in the Force once again, which is what they're always trying to accomplish. So when they do go to battle, everyone's like, oh, he just gets cut in half, how did he not see that? See, the thing is, Kylo saw how Snoke was manipulating him through the Force, to go and contact Rey, because they wouldn't be able to connect to each other regularly. He even mentioned something like that. So he uses that against his master, because his master is being arrogant. He's like, I see your true enemy is being killed. And that also goes to the sense that the Sith are always trying to get more power. So basically, Kylo wants to be where Snoke is. That's how it always works. The Padawan is always trying to kill the master when it comes to the Sith side of things. So that's where he's like, your true enemy is being targeted right now. I see it. So he's holding against Rey, and Snoke sees this, and he thinks this, and then when the weapon goes off, the lightsaber, he's completely blown away because he didn't see it coming. He was so, he thought he had everything planned out. He had full control over Kylo, but that wasn't the case. And then he realized this, and it was too late. He's dead. He may not be dead. Well, I'm pretty sure, considering the body was all there and they had this long scene afterwards. Whatever the case, it was very interesting. So after they finished fighting, and it was really nice to see those guards put up a good fight against Kylo and Rey. I thought that was really well done. Definitely surprising, because usually, you're a Jedi, you just cut through everything. Not a big deal. But they actually put up a good battle. So the part that's interesting is someone would be like, oh, they could have been diplomatic and ended this with the truce and stuff. But no, you're not seeing the point of it. So Kylo is doing the same thing that Anakin did. Oh, we're going to forge a new galaxy, a new order. It'll be run under us. It'll be done our way. That's the exact same thing Anakin did in 3. And Rey sees, sort of the exact same thing. It's like, no, you're turning to, you want me to turn to the dark side. This isn't like a diplomatic thing. You're following the same path as what's already happened. You're trying to move past things, but you're just redoing the same thing that's already happened. And that's why she goes against him. And it's very, very interesting, and it actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it, just by breaking it down what happened. I thought that whole scene was absolutely wonderful, not only visually, but just in the context of how much happened within just such a short span of time, and how much it completely altered the entire franchise going forward. Even by the end, both sides are very, very fractured. Another part of that scene is Rey's lineage, which I still think could be maybe not what happened. Remember, they're both very emotional, and Kylo is attempting to turn Rey. So by making her seem like nothing, which would actually be good if she was just a nobody, because that's how all the Skywalkers come out. She would be more like a Skywalker than anything, even more of a Skywalker than he was, because he was sort of born into something, easier going. You look at Anakin, he was nothing, just a kid in the sand. You look at Luke, he was nothing, he's just a kid in the sand. And that's kind of what Rey was. Not Tatooine, but Jakku, and it's just a wasteland, and these kids come from nothing, and that's sort of the theme of Star Wars. And Ben doesn't really follow that. He isn't exactly a true Skywalker, he's got the last one with the blood, but Rey is the most, if that was true, following that lineage of just this kid coming from nothing and bringing a balance to the Force. She could still be, someone's kid or something. Because I do believe, he was trying to manipulate her over and kind of play on her feelings. Now, when you look at the Holdo point, where she kind of doesn't tell anyone what her plan is, I think that was more of an elaborate kind of thing to give Poe a lesson. She didn't expect him to turn. She expected him to be this, guy that wasn't thinking about the Resistance first and so forth, just kind of hot-headed. And she wanted to teach him, sometimes you have to follow the chain of command and put trust in the system because there is a plan at play. And he, completely didn't go with that at all because he was, doing his whole background thing with the code breaker and so forth. And I thought that was an interesting lesson that she was trying to teach. She didn't think it would go that way, like how it ended up, but the ideas there were very interesting, that she was attempting to maybe give him a showing of what, a leader is supposed to do, the sacrifice and so forth, that she was planning to do for the good of the Resistance and so forth, to keep them fighting another day. He was doing it in his own way, but he wasn't thinking about, following the chain of command, and that was an issue he had at the start too with Leia as far as the bombing run. I think the whole Finn scene where he was driving towards the cannon would have been a nice finish for his character. I'm not really sure how Rose caught up to him, but we'll just say whatever, Force, blah blah blah. It would have been a nice full circle for him to sacrifice himself to stop the threat that he came from, and I thought that would have been a good finish for the character. He had his own little sub thing the whole movie. I've never really liked his character, but I get the point, the role he serves, and I thought he was decent in this one, and that would have been a really nice defining moment for him, just to finish it off by going into that thing and sort of having a full purpose in the whole film. The Jedi texts being in the Millennium Falcon were very interesting. I think Rey took them, or maybe Yoda snuck them in there, but it was a very good moment where Yoda was like, oh yeah, she's got everything she needs, and then it shows up later in the film. I thought that was very cleverly done. So going on to the actual sort of ending battle there, where Kylo is facing off against Luke, where it's the sort of projection of him across as a Force ghost to some extent. I thought that one was very well done and very interesting. It just sort of created a legend around the character as far as him taking hits from the AT-ATs, or the new version of the AT-ATs, whatever they're called. And a lot of people are like wondering, it's like, oh, the blue lightsaber. I thought the green one would have been cooler, but it's very interesting because it shows Luke has a sort of power over Kylo, and Kylo was just blinded by rage and wanting to finish Luke off in any way he could. And to see the projection of a young Luke that hasn't changed at all from his memory was something that really threw him off. And that's probably why he didn't notice the smaller things that he would normally be very, precise and calculated about. And I think that's kind of why that part of it flew with the blue lightsaber, the old style clothing that looked like he hadn't aged. Was because Kylo was already very emotional about what was happening, and he wasn't really looking for the smaller details, and to see his master in this old way kind of really just threw him off and completely drove him crazy. I thought that point was very interesting. I'm not even going to go over the Leia scene. That was strange. It made sense with the connection to the Force, but it was a very odd moment. It would have been a good time for her to go out, technically, but not even going to go about the weird Mary Poppins scene. So that's some Star Wars thoughts. Let me know if you think I was completely off on some of these. I think they kind of explain a lot of the context of what happened in the film. And obviously there were a lot of spoilers, which were fun. And you can read more things in the description below.